Jack was a 12-year-old boy, filled with courage and dreams. Despite his young age, he carried an inner strength far beyond his years. His father, a captain serving in Afghanistan, was more than just a parent. He was Jack's hero. His strong hands, reassuring voice, and unwavering promise to always return home shaped Jack's world. Whenever his father was deployed, Jack would sit in his room, writing him long letters, pouring out his longing and excitement about the things they would do together once he came back. But before he could receive even one reply, life was preparing to shatter Jack's dreams. One morning, there was a knock on the door. Jack ran excitedly, thinking it was a letter from his father. But when he opened the door, two soldiers in uniform stood before him. Their solemn expressions sent a chill through his body. His mother, Sarah, froze at the doorway, already sensing the devastating truth. One of the soldiers lowered his head and softly said, "We are sorry for your loss." In that moment, Jack's world stopped spinning. His mother's legs gave out beneath her, and she collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Jack just stood there, trying to comprehend what was happening. "No, my dad is strong. He's coming back," he whispered, but no one said anything because they all knew the painful truth. For days, Jack clung to the hope that it was all just a mistake. Maybe his father was on a mission and would come back any day now. But when the soldiers returned with a box containing his father's medals and the final letter he had never gotten the chance to send, reality crashed down on him. He was now a fatherless child. Their house was still the same. His mother was still with him, but nothing felt as it had before. His father's voice was now just a fading echo in the wind. Months had passed since Jack lost his father, but life had another cruel twist waiting for them. His mother, Sarah, had been suffering from severe headaches, and when she finally went to the doctor, the diagnosis was devastating. She had a brain tumor. Surgery and treatment were beyond their financial reach. Each passing day, she grew weaker, and Jack, despite his young age, tried desperately to help. But life showed no mercy. Their landlord, cold and indifferent, evicted them when they couldn't pay rent. Homeless and helpless, Jack and his mother had nowhere to go. That night, they slept on a park bench. The air was cold, and Jack held his mother tightly, whispering, "Everything will be okay, Mom. I promise." But life had made no such promises to him. The next morning, when Jack woke up and turned to his mother, she wasn't breathing. Her body was still, her warmth gone. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. His mother was gone. In the span of a few months, Jack had lost everything he had ever loved. After losing his mother, Jack was completely alone. He wandered the streets aimlessly, sitting in corners, avoiding the eyes of passers-by. He was hungry, cold, and had no idea what to do. The only things he had left were a small photograph of his mother and an old letter from his father. Nights were sleepless, filled with the biting chill of the streets, and days were spent trying to sell small trinkets just to survive. Despite everything, deep inside, Jack held onto a faint glimmer of hope. One day, he stumbled upon a phone and began reading about Dwayne, "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne had always been his hero. Jack knew about his story, how he overcame struggles and turned his life around. Inspired by his idol, Jack poured all his emotions into a tweet, bearing his soul to the world. "I've lost everything. My dad, my mom, my home. Now I'm alone, but I've always wanted to be strong, like The Rock. I wish I could hug him just once." Jack's tweet quickly went viral, capturing the hearts of countless people who couldn't ignore the pain of a child facing such unimaginable hardships. As the message circulated, it finally reached Dwayne, "The Rock" Johnson himself. Taking a break between scenes on set, Dwayne scrolled through his phone and stumbled upon Jack's words. "I've lost everything. My dad, my mom, my home. Now I'm alone, but I've always wanted to be strong, like The Rock. I wish I could hug him just once." He read the words over and over, his eyes welling up with tears. The pain and courage in those sentences struck a chord deep within him. He took a deep breath, memories of his own struggles flooding back. The nights he spent in a car with his mom, trying to make ends meet with just $7 in his pocket. But Jack's story felt heavier, almost unbearable. No child should have to carry such a burden. Determined to help, Dwayne immediately alerted his team to find Jack. They worked tirelessly for hours, eventually locating the boy. Without hesitation, Dwayne boarded his private jet to meet him. He wasn't just an actor or a former wrestler anymore. He was about to become Jack's lifeline. Jack was sitting on a corner that day, trying to sell a few old books he had found. His stomach growled from hunger, his thin jacket did little to protect him from the cold, and his hollow eyes reflected a deep despair. People walked by, occasionally casting pitying glances, but no one stopped to help. Suddenly, there was a commotion. People whispered to each other, some pulled out their phones to record, and a tall, imposing figure walked toward Jack. Confused, Jack slowly looked up, his breath caught in his throat as he recognized the man standing before him. It was him, the man he'd admired for so long, the one who gave him strength on his darkest days, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne crouched down to meet Jack's gaze, his warm eyes locking onto the boy's. In that moment, the noise of the world faded into silence. Jack stared at him, frozen in disbelief, unable to move or speak. Dwayne, with tears glistening in his eyes, gave him a gentle smile. "Hey, kid, I came to see you." Jack's lips quivered, and tears spilled down his cheeks. Years of pent-up pain, loneliness, and longing poured out all at once. He threw himself into Dwayne's arms, his small frame trembling as he sobbed uncontrollably. Dwayne wrapped his arms around Jack, gently patting his back and whispering, "It's okay, you're safe now." When Jack finally calmed down, he looked up and whispered through his tears, "My dad was a hero. When he died, my mom told me to be strong. But then she left too. Now I have no one. I'm cold every night, and I wake up hungry every morning. She said I'd grow up to be a good man, but I don't know how." Dwayne listened intently, his heart breaking with every word. He took a deep breath to steady himself, his own struggles flashing through his mind. But this moment wasn't about him, it was about Jack. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, he said, "Listen, kid, even the strongest people fall sometimes, but what matters is getting back up, and you've been doing that all on your own. But now, you're not alone anymore." Jack's wide, tear-filled eyes met Dwayne's. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt a sense of hope, a sense of belonging. Dwayne wasn't just his idol now, he was like a father figure. Dwayne stood up, holding Jack's hand firmly in his own. Around them, a crowd had gathered, watching in awe, but none of that mattered. The only thing that did was the small spark of hope in Jack's eyes. "From now on, everything's going to change, kid. I promise." And in that moment, a new chapter began in Jack's life. Dwayne was determined not to leave Jack on his own. He arranged for a warm home, an education scholarship, and a fund to cover all of Jack's expenses through college. Jack was no longer alone. He now had a roof over his head, a cozy bed to sleep in, and the chance to continue his education. For the first time in years, his future seemed bright. As the years went by, Jack grew up and built a life of his own. But he never forgot Dwayne. To Jack, Dwayne wasn't just a hero, he was a second father. One day, Jack stood on a stage and gave a speech. "When life knocks you down, you need someone to reach out and lift you up. For me, that person was Dwayne. And now, I'm going to do the same for others." The story ended with Jack reclaiming his life, and Dwayne's helping hand turning despair into hope. Life often gives us hope in the darkest moments, just like in Jack's story. If this touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Even a small act of support can spark big changes.